welcome to another book review. Woo! This is my second book review I'm doing. I'm doing the book Dirty Jeans by Dr. Ben Lynch. So this was a really good book. I really learned a lot from this and really enjoyed it. I just want to share a couple of thoughts, a couple of the things I learned, general, what's talked about in the book, that sort of a thing. For those who are interested in kind of what it talks about, what it says, and whether or not you want to read it. So for those who don't know, Dr. Ben Lynch is the main doctor behind the brand Seeking Health, the supplement company, which I'll just say real quick. I have researched and I really like them and I think they're good. The only thing I think is so interesting is that most of the supplements in Seeking Health is the nutrients are synthetically derived. I just think that's so interesting because he talks so much in this book about the importance of nutrition and mostly getting our, all of those vitamins and minerals from food. And so I'm just curious, I just thought that was such an interesting thing. I'm like, why aren't the supplements more whole food derived then? I just think that's so interesting because he even says supplements are more for a specific time, or you take them only for a short period of time or to get your body to a certain point, but it's not something that you would be on long term. Ideally, it's ideal to get majority of your nutrients if possible from your diet. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting okay little thing. But for the most part, I really liked this book. I'm just gonna read off my notes here. Okay, so here's basically what it talked about, right? So I thought the whole concept of this book is that there are more than dozens, lots of different genes in our body, and they can be born dirty or they can act dirty. I liked the analogy that he used of your genes are always at work and they're printing out a document, and everything you do determines whether the font on that document is large or small. So even if something is born dirty, you were born with it, it's irreversible. A lot of people have the MTHFR gene disorder, and some are born with that. Not really something that can change the genetic makeup, but what your lifestyle is, what you do, what your body's exposed to, every decision you make is basically dictating whether that font is going to be really small and doesn't really impact your body that much, or if the font is really big and is taking up the whole document and is really impacting you. So I thought that was interesting. He talks about 7 different key genes in this book, which are the MTHFR one, which I feel is more common, more people are starting to know more about, which is trouble methylating vitamins, and you have a big problem detoxing most of the time. Another one that he talks about is the COMT, which is related to focus, mood, how your body handles estrogen. The DAO gene, which is food, chemical sensitivities, leaky gut related. It impacts that the most. The MAOA, which is very closely tied to mood swings and carb cravings and dopamine and serotonin control in your body. The GST/the GPX gene, which is very closely related to detox and detox issues. The NOS3, which is heart issues, nitric oxide production in the body, which if you remember my last video, my book review, I talked about the methylene blue book, which talks a lot about nitric oxide, because one of the biggest ways methylene blue works is by a nitric oxide inhibitor. So anyway, small note on that. If you haven't read that, or if you haven't watched that video, go check that one out. But the last gene that he talks about is the PEMT, which impacts cell membranes and the liver. So it was really interesting. I didn't know he was going to talk about so many in the book, but he goes through a lot of different things that it impacts, how to know if your genes are dirty. Some of the key takeaways that I had were just there's a big difference between the genes being born dirty and then ones that become dirty and can be acting dirty. And just the concept of you can clean your genes is kind of what he uses as an analogy the whole time through of his clean genes protocol, which I'll talk about in just a second. Basically just healthy living and healthy eating and healthy lifestyles, how that impacts so much your body's your genes and how they're functioning properly, or we're saying that small or large font on the document, which is interesting. His theory is definitely that genes have always been born dirty, or had problems like that just throughout the years, but we're noticing it more and more continually because of the overall toxic burden in our lives. and the stress that that's putting on our body and our detox organs, that it's more overburdened than other times or like time periods in history, because we're consistently having more things that we're exposed to, we're putting in our bodies or on our bodies surrounding it, whatever. And that it's having a harder time keeping up with all the detoxing, and so that it's becoming overrun, and that's why we're having more of an issue of it now, which I do tend to believe is very true. So he talks about in here, he goes through like each one of all the different genes of, you know, what it impacts and stuff like that. But at the end of it, he comes to his 4-week clean your genes routine. He has like a step 1. The first 2 weeks are, I think what he calls is like soap and scrub, which is like the detox phase and de-stress. He goes through it all in this book of like what to do, but basically it's just like healthy living, you know, getting proper exercise, getting enough water, getting enough sleep, you know, turning screens off by a certain time, and eating, I think he does gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, pretty much. It's very closely related to a paleo diet, not 100%, but that's generally speaking, there's more to it, but there's generally speaking, that's kind of what his protocol is. But basically just helping your body de-stress and take that burden off of your detox organs to be able to kind of then assess which ones are really actually dirty or not, or just acting dirty, but just kind of keeping it all in check. So some other thoughts that I had from reading it. I was amazed at how much methylation is really involved in everything. The MTHFR gene is really only one he talks about, but it's amazing. Just he goes through. It's really cool. Just the kind of the science behind how it all works and how it impacts your body. And I just think it's interesting how really methylation affects everything in your body. That was interesting. It also was amazing to me how much stress makes everything worse and compounds it. Every single gene, it always came back to, if you're stressed, it's going to be so much worse. Like, it's going to be creating more of an issue for you. It's going to be printing out a larger, font, if you will, on that document, and how like cortisol is so closely related to, like triggering a lot of these things, and how each one just gets a lot less of a problem when stress is kept in check. Really interesting. And I was also amazed at how many of them, pretty much every single gene being dirty, was linked to pregnancy or fertility complications. Also, just for women, obviously. I also thought that was just so interesting how that was impacted pretty much every single time. There was some ramification, having to do with that. So anyway, overall, I really learned a lot. I think he did a really good job of breaking down some of the, jargon, medical jargon, and surrounding this topic. He's incredibly knowledgeable on this topic in general and has become pretty well known for it. I really do highly recommend reading it. I think there was really his whole philosophy on, he talks a lot about nutrition being a huge part of this, and of cleaning your genes. So overall, I really recommend this book. I thought it was really, really good. I really agreed with pretty much everything in it. And I think he breaks down really well there's like little tests in each like section to try to figure out which one you really have, which ones you have more problems with, which ones to prioritize first. So if you have unexplainable health problems and you're trying to figure out what is going on, I think this would be a really good resource to maybe, one of those rabbit holes to go down in the holistic world to try to give some clarity, and might answer a lot of questions as far as specifically patterns. And it's cool because there's very specific, like if you have carb cravings and you feel a certain way after eating sugar and you feel a certain way at night, and like there's some very specific things like that, like in the test, that I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, this is me 100%, and be able to gain a lot of kind of answers on that. So anyway, overall, I really recommend it.